So good afternoon and welcome to this webinar today. I'm Hannah Vickers. I'm the Chief Executive of the Association for Consultancy and Engineering. And this is the first instalment in our second series of the webinar series, Navigating COVID-19. So you're all very welcome, whether you're ACE members or whether you're members of other trade associations, whether your businesses work wherever they do across the construction sector, you're all very welcome to be joining us. Really interesting topic we've got today. But just first to give you a little bit of background, this series of webinars have been developed by us to offer support to the industry during this period of disruption. And today's is focusing specifically on maximising motivation while in lockdown. So we're a few weeks in now. I'm sure this is a topic very close to the front of your minds, and we've got some fantastic expert speakers today. So just moving on to the agenda for today, I'm really pleased to say we've got Georgia Hughes, who is our board member at ACE, and she's the chair of our Emerging Professionals Network. So very welcome, Georgia. We've also got a speech today from someone who I'm amazed at his job title, actually. This is so interesting. So it's Dr. Andrew Dewar, who is a performance psychologist at WSP. I mean, goodness, how many of those do we have across our sector? So I'm really pleased that Andrew is going to be sharing his thoughts on motivation with us today. I think there's an awful lot we're going to be able to take away from that. So as we go through the presentations, please do be thinking about the questions, because lastly, we've got a Q&A session at the end. So we'll make sure we leave a reasonable amount of time, sort of 20 minutes or so, to take your questions. So as we go through the presentation today, please make sure that you are noting those down. So we've also got Jordan McLachlan, who is going to be joining us for the Q&As. He's also in our Emerging Professionals Network, but his day job is at WSP. So again, a really good mixture, different perspectives from across the sector on our panel today for Q&A. So get your questions ready. For those of you who haven't joined us before, I'm not judging you, but just some housekeeping. You'll get the best experience if you listen through headphones. You don't have to, but if you want the best experience about listening, not necessarily to me, but probably more to our speakers, it would be best if you did that through headphones. Like I said, there is a Q&A at the end of this session, but you can ask questions at any time. And you can do that through the panel on the right of your screen. You'll see there's a sort of questions panel on the right of your screen. So just type in your question at any point, and we will collect them all up and come to them in the Q&A session at the end. If we don't get through all of them today, we will follow up with you afterwards and put them to the speakers and follow up with an answer for you afterwards. So please do put them in. We'll have plenty of time to get through them. And lastly, just to say that we are going to be recording this, as we've recorded all of our other webinars that we've done in this series. So if you do miss anything, you will be able to watch this back. If you do enjoy this and want to share it with your colleagues, again, we'll all be available for free on our website to anybody that is interested. So make sure that you visit the web page there at the bottom, so you can catch up on this or on other webinars in the series. Okay, I think that's certainly enough from me, given that we've got so much to get through today. So our first guest is Georgia Hughes. She's chair of the AC Emerging Professionals Network, and they have been doing some research around the workplace of the future. So she is going to give us a bit of an overview on how to motivate and put yourself in the minds of the emerging professionals. So Georgia, over to you.
Wonderful, thank you, Hannah. So the emerging professionals, if we could have the next slide, please, James. Thank you very much. And the following one. Thank you. So the emerging professionals are a network that stems out of ACE. We operate in all 4 countries within the United Kingdom across 7 regions with approximately 1,300 active members. We have the next one through. I think they might be on animations. Perfect, thank you. So as you can see, we have networks in London and the South East, the Midlands, the North East, Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland and the North West. And predominantly what these networks offer is a way to connect with like-minded individuals across the built and natural environment. So these are done through events, through webinars such as this one, and through sort of regional committee activities that come where those sort of all come together. We've regional chairs and vice chairs as well, and an emerging professional is predominantly, as I said, those who work and operate in the built and natural environment, whether this is in consultancy, as engineers, as project managers, environmentalists, consultants of any broad sense. We welcome everyone to come along and join into our committees and get involved with everything. We are sort of those that are forward thinking and have sort of enthusiastic elements. It's by and large those that are within the first 12 years of their career. We don't have an age stop, we don't, and neither do we have a start or a stop aspect. So for some of our regions, we've got people who are new apprentices who have joined, so from the age of 17 up to sort of between 35 and 40. So we welcome anyone and everyone. And really, it's those who join us are those who are sort of the future of the business and the future of the industry moving forward. So you can see we're supporting tomorrow's future leaders today. You go to the next slide, please. Thank you very much. So as I said, we're the custodians of the future industry. We hold events at regional levels across those that I've mentioned on the previous slide. We provide an opportunity for emerging professionals to grow and to develop certain aspects that they might not get as a part of their day job, including being able to lead on the committees and to provide input into different events and things that we host. We've also shaping the future of the workplace. So this is, and I'll go into a bit more detail on this shortly, but this is a campaign and an initiative that stemmed out from ACE's A Future of Consultancy. And we are very much the voice of the next generation, supporting the industry transformation as we're moving through this. We will be the ones who will be working and operating in whatever the future of consultancy might look like, current climate aside. And we're sort of looking to really make sure that we can support the development of it now, so that we are well placed to take a lead or whatever form of participation we choose to, recognising that not everybody wants to be a leader as we move forward into the next part of the industry. James, if I could have the next slide. Thank you very much. So as I said, the emerging professionals have been tasked with delivering the future of the workplace, which is a strand that comes out of ACE's Future of Consultancy campaign that was launched last year. The future of the workplace is looking around how we can deliver value and how we deliver value driven by the values that we're looking to create. So we commissioned last year a piece of research that provides a high-level summary into the findings. So this provides a high-level summary into the findings of that research that we developed, and we're looking to provide a sort of a launch platform for us as we move forward into further research into this year and on into 2021. The research was by and large looking at two related issues. These are the forces shaping the consultancy workplace, the impact of the technology and changing client demands, and the impact of transition to value-based business models, which is envisaged by the Future of Consultancy campaign. The second one of those is the attitudes of emerging professionals. So as I said, these are typically those that are sort of 35 and under, and how they're sort of reacting to the workplace and the implications for consultancy business following this. This work is going to help sort of support emerging professionals as a broad sense in our role within the Future of Consultancy campaign, and aligns to very much the business plan that the emerging professionals have in place, which is looking to understand how emerging professionals choose their companies that they want to work for, what opportunities there might be for them, and the sort of jobs that would be right for those individuals moving forward. It's also supporting our member firms from ACE to help understand the drivers that emerging professionals have, and we'll also be looking to provide developed pathways in the broader sense to help emerging professionals navigate and have the right conversations with the appropriate people within their company about their careers, both within whichever firm they're a part of, and how to develop it beyond that. I could have the next slide, please, James. So a very high level overview of what the research has found to date. As you can see, we've got sort of three different forces that are shaping the future of the consultancy workplace. The first one of these is sort of the alignment of the future of consultancy vision. So when interviewing individuals from a mixture of backgrounds, including those working within human resources departments, business leaders and individuals more broadly, we've recognised that the picture is changing, and the industry outset that we've detailed in the Future of Consultancy campaign in the overview report launched last year details some of this. There's also an area of changing job families. A number of interviewees who we spoke to described how the technology and client demands are changing the job families as opposed to technical discipline, and the roles that consultancies may want to take when looking at how we deliver projects and we group organisations and programmes. They've been described quite broadly, but sort of summarised as solution finders, solution developers, and solution builders. The interviewees that we spoke to stressed that there is the importance of differentiating between the families and the more traditional division between commercial and technical teams. But the key to success is an enhanced and sustained level of collaboration between these groups. Similarly, firms of all sizes talked about needing a clear strategy for positioning their firms within the ecosystems of businesses and collaborating to deliver these roles to the client. The attitudes of emerging professionals. Whilst every generation of sort of emerging professionals shares lots of different characteristics, we do know that there is value in identifying the aspects of the current generation's experiences, material circumstances, and how these might generate significant differences in attitudes. What's sort of quite interesting to note here is that there were sort of 4 common areas where these generational differences might sit. So first one being within sort of the use of the internet and the impacts on attitudes to transparency, hierarchy, political, business leadership, and collaboration within employers and how they work. As you can see to the right of the screen, Henry Timms and Jeremy Heinemann, 2 researchers, you can see the link to the below where we've taken this from, point to the fact that the biggest video games of successive generations to help us to illustrate what the impact of growing up with the web on attitudes might be to individuals. In the 90s, this generation by and large played Tetris. They would sit on their own arranging shapes that fell from the sky, sent by sort of an unseeing hand. Whereas the generation who've grown up with Minecraft and arguably also the many different versions of Sims and SimCity played and developed in an open world in which they were able to decide what, where and how they were going to build something and who they wanted to build them with. We've also sort of seeing within this large changes to the UK education system, and arguably those that are coming up through now are some of the most tested to date in terms of education systems, increasing diversity within the UK society and an expectation that this is and will be reflected in the workplace, and increasingly so the acceleration of the climate crisis and its position as the generational challenge for many emerging professionals to date. We also have the culture of the future workplace, and this is sort of developed into a set of characteristics that will be looking to move forward with the future of the workplace that are likely to help consultancies thrive. Again, to note, this is sort of the research that has come out to date, and these areas are broadly split into purposeful and meaningful work, commitment to development opportunities, being able to walk the talk, flexibility and work-life balance, diversity, transparency, openness and fairness, collaboration and embracing apprenticeships. And these are all sort of key themes that were coming up when we were speaking with our interviewees to create this. So what are we looking to do in order to develop this? So the changing job families that I spoke to earlier are forming a part of the research with the ACE Future Skills Group, and this will provide support and steer to the Consultancy Sector Future Institute, which has been created as a part of the Future of Consultancy campaign. With regards to the attitudes of the emerging professionals, we're developing further research in this area, and this will form part of a series of articles, podcasts, webinars with members of the ACE board and wider industry to understand what those attitudes are and how we can provide support and help to sort of steer people along on this journey that they're running through. If you want to be involved in any of those webinars, please do reach out. Details can be found on the AC website. But finally, and I think perhaps certainly for me, the most exciting of this is looking into what the culture of the future workplace will be like. This is the area that we know is going to have the biggest impact on industry, aside from development of skills required and value-based business models. But this is actually looking at where the future of the sector is going to be. And this is something that we're doing our next round of research associated with. This is going to be we're going to be looking at building a cultural pathway in line with the views of emerging professionals, business leaders, to link into the future of the workplace, to start to map out what these culture change might look like and might be, in order to create a resilient workplace for us all to thrive in. Within this culture piece, we'll be researching how the current situation has changed behaviours and cultures, speaking to individuals across other industries to understand what's changed for them, and looking to see how we can future-proof the workplace for any further disruptions that could come through, such as the current one that we're in at the moment. If you'd like to input into this research, please do get in touch. My details can be found on the website, or you're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn and we can progress further. And I think part of this future proofing now, especially now, is being able to understand how we can work more successfully with us being agile and remote, with a focus on project delivery, but also on the personal growth and resilience, which is why I'm incredibly excited about the following presentation from Andrew. I think, as Hannah's alluded to, we don't have very many psychologists within Andrew's field in our sector, so it's going to be very interesting to hear a bit more from him. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Georgia. That was fascinating, and appreciate that your research hasn't quite finished yet. So you were, I'll say, slightly put on the spot is the wrong terminology, but I'm grateful that you were able to share some of the emerging findings. And as you say, there's plenty of opportunity to get involved with that. But no, fantastic, and I'm sure it's stimulating a lot of questions. So just a gentle reminder to people to put questions in on the right of your screen for Georgia or for Andrew, or just general questions, and we can put them to the panelists at the end. But the hotly anticipated, shall I say, now he's had such a big build-up, Dr. Andrew Dewar is going to talk us through some thoughts around motivation through a very different lens in his role as a performance psychologist at WSP. So Andrew, would you like to take us away? I know you've got a particularly jazzy presentation, which we're hoping is going to go technically very smoothly. So I'll just let you get that set up, and I shall hand over to you now. Andrew, you're very welcome.
Fantastic. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Georgia. Genuinely incredibly interesting research there. So I'm really excited to hear about that now and then follow that in the future. Okay, cool. So I'm going to, I assume that you can see my title slide there. Please do stop me if you can't. But I thought, before I go into the sort of details of maximising motivation, like you say, there's not many performance psychologists around, so I should probably explain where I sit. I actually sit within a continuous improvement services team. So what we do is three main things. We improve performance, projects, and we help solve problems. So the performance bit is a lot from me. I take research and information that I've gained from years working in high performance environments like sport and organizational psychology, and I apply them to businesses to help individuals and teams perform better. And the other bits that we do, we help make projects more effective and efficient so they deliver on time and to budget. And we help clients solve big problems. So we take structured methodologies to help people solve those problems. So before we start talking about motivation, I just want to sort of, this is quite a holistic presentation. I'd like to think about things about the whole individual rather than having a laser focus on one element, because people are really complicated and you need to think about a number of different factors. And so this has sort of led to something I'm sort of calling the motivation paradox, which is basically, if we were to only focus on motivation while people are working from home, or in when we go back to the new normal, we won't actually get maximum motivation because there's so much that goes into it. So we need to take that holistic approach. We need to get the environment right to allow motivation, productivity, and well-being to really flourish. Now, I don't want to talk for for an hour and we don't have that time. So what I'm suggesting is that you choose those topics that I just flashed up on the screen, and then we'll pick the top ones, and then I'll talk about those, and then we'll take some questions. I think that's a much more interesting way of doing things. So if you can go to a web browser on your PC, or grab your smartphone and get a web browser up there and go to menti.com. It should look a bit like the picture I've got on the screen. So just go to menti.com and then you just put in the code 330165 and hit submit. Then I'll go to my web browser. We've already got somebody putting in. What I want you to do is enter 3 choices in that Menti window, and then after it's had time to settle, we'll use those as our 3 topics. So you just pick 3 from the option list and then hit submit for that question. Don't worry about the rest of the presentation there. So just to give you, motivation's obviously coming up as the top one, which is fantastic. But we're sort of interested in, there's a clump around things like communication. So that is, we could talk a little bit about the principles of communication. We could also talk about the tools that we use. Leadership is a big one, so that's not only for people who manage teams, but that's technical leadership as well. So having that whole view of things and how that impacts people's motivation. And then it seems like trust is coming up quite highly there as well. This is really interesting. I've actually done this presentation before, and some of the topics that came up before aren't coming up this time, so this is really, really cool. So we're definitely going to talk about motivation, and it seems like we've settled on communication and leadership as well. So fantastic. All right, back to the presentation. So I'm going to do with motivation last, so I'm going to jump to communication. So the reason I think this is really interesting is because I actually think this solely working from home and working in this remote way could be the biggest change to communication since email was invented. And I think actually we're really having to be quite focused on what good communication is. And I've deliberately included listening there, because too often when we talk and think about communication, it's about it's about tone, it's about body language, it's about what you say, it's about how you present graphics, it's all of that stuff, which is all very, very important. But actually, for me, such a massive part of this is listening. It's listening to the other person. What do they need? What do they want? And then tailoring your message to that, because there's an idea that communication is actually what the listener does, not what you pass on to them. It's such a two-way street, so important. But the really interesting thing is, I wonder how many people in the last month have had an actual focused conversation about what good communication looks like with your peers, with your teammates, with people in your organization. Because I think even a half-hour discussion invested in that is going to pay back so many productivity improvements, just by covering some simple stuff like what are our ground rules for communication, so that could be contact hours, it could be how you communicate when you respond to things. It plays into a conversation about flexible working as well, and what's the expectations, which is another really key thing. What about how much better could we be, more motivated and more productive, if instead of finishing an hour meeting at the hour or 1 minute after and then diving straight onto another call, if we finished at 5:02 and had just a minute, 5 minutes to think and grab a cup of tea? I think that would really, really help motivation, it would really help productivity, and it's such a simple fix as well. So some other ideas about communication, are you doing daily check-ins? Are you doing these virtual coffee breaks, office hours, all sorts of tools that you can use to allow you to continue to communicate? Because while things are uncertain, it is really, really important to just check in a little bit more, because the uncertainty can breed anxiety, essentially. And the more that we communicate, more we'll clarify expectations, and the better that we'll feel. When we take away that anxiety, people are able to be productive and motivated. So that's why communication's really important. So I just challenge you to think about, well, what is effective communication for you and your team? And, is it explicit? Have you defined it well enough? Okay, so on to leadership. And as I say, this could be, you could be leading a team or a department, or this could be yourself leading a technical specialty or a piece of work. It's not restricted in any way. But it is a difficult time to be leading. You know, it's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. But if we think about what individuals want from you as a leader, and I recognize this is a massive, massive topic, but from the research that I've done around high-performing teams, the 5 things on the screen there are the 5 things that teams are looking for and other people are looking to you to provide leadership on. So to what extent have we got clarity around goals and priorities? Some people have more of a desire for clarity than others, especially people who are really task focused. They really excel in that environment, whereas other people like a more relaxed approach. But there's a way that you can tailor your message there to either give really clear goals to somebody who loves tasks and give priorities and more of a general framework to those that don't, and that will help tap into the motivation for that individual, their ability to make choices or get things done, because that, you know, that dopamine you hit when you tick off something from your to-do list can be really powerful for people. So that's the first two. Building a collaborative climate is just including people in the work that you're doing and reinforcing everybody's perspective. Probably a bit more challenging now that you've got folks on the phone. So have you changed your Skype or your team calls to try and build a collaborative climate, or is it being dominated by the people who think fast and talk quickly, or respond to questions quickly? You know, so what are the kind of things that you could do around that? Could you make more use of the instant messaging function in your program there? Or could you allow people scope to have a think about actions and agenda items before a meeting or after the meeting? Just thinking about the different ways that people interact and respond to information can make them feel heard and recognized, and that can be massive for their motivation, because if they understand that you're thinking about them and you value and respect them, it's going to be so big for them, and they're really going to be invested in the work you're doing together. Managed performance is one that's more focused towards people leadership, because that's really around, if you're setting those, doing the first 3 things, so performance is good up front, but if there's an issue or something that's creating a challenging situation, that is dealt with quickly. And the reason that that's important is because by dealing with those things quickly, it helps everybody else stay on track, because so often our work is interlinked together with each other. And then the last one, I love talking about building confidence. I think it's so important, and I describe it as your armor. You know, this idea that, you know, we're not on top of our game every single day, but if we've got a level of confidence that protects us, even if we're having a slightly down day, that's something that we can fall back on, and we can be resilient to the challenges that we face. But actually, it's not the kind of thing you can fake. And, you know, athletes see this all the time. You've heard of athletes who, you know, go through periods of low confidence and their performance really suffers. I think it's quite similar at work, maybe to a less extent than we see in athletics, but it is still important, and we can help build that in anybody that we work with, just with realistic goals, by giving the opportunity to achieve many goals over short-term goals they can achieve and gain success, and then giving them positive reinforcement and reminding them of that success in the future. So what do you think is the most important things that leaders can do? And critically, what can you do to show leadership at this difficult time, because people around you might be struggling? Okay, and so actually talking about the science of motivation, the leadership and the communication will help, but to really understand this in a bit of depth, I like this graphic here, because it allows us to think at kind of 3 levels. And often when we're talking about motivation, it's not quantity, it's not like how much you want to do something. It's actually about quality, about a sense of enjoyment and a desire to do something, and the feeling you get when you do it. And that's really what influences our productivity and our performance at work, basically. And so these 3 levels show the kind of different levels and then the different quality of output that you get. when you have these different levels of motivation. So the biological one's pretty obvious. That's the reason that even though we're tired and we're sat on the sofa of an evening, we'll get up and make ourselves a snack if we're hungry, or we'll get ourselves a drink if we need one. We've got certain biological things that we need to do to keep us safe, but it's usually fairly simple tasks, especially for sort of modern people who are so advanced. Extrinsic motivation is essentially reward and punishment. And there's been so much research on this around, performance bonuses and all that kind of thing. But basically the research boils down to bonuses and external rewards are fine for fairly simple tasks. They can help you get more done, if the task is simple and it has there's a very clear objective. But when it's complex work that's really challenging, or it needs to be creative and innovative, actually, by giving extrinsic rewards for that, we can decrease the motivation to the task if we look at it in the long term. So you might find that if you give somebody the possibility of a reward, you get some good results in the short term. But if you then take that reward away, you're going to decrease motivation in the future, perhaps below the level it was at initially. So you have to be really, really careful with how you design reward and recognition packages to actually maximize motivation now and in the future, and to avoid demotivating people down the line. So there's quite a lot of science behind that. But the one I'm most interested in, the one I think is most important, is intrinsic motivation. And that's essentially it's the desire to do something because we enjoy it. We want to do it from within ourselves. There's a desire, hence the flame. And when we talk about intrinsic motivation, Daniel Pink's done some great work breaking this down into these three component parts. And basically what he's done is summarize a huge amount of research into something which I think is quite manageable. So purpose is, are you connected to the why of what you're doing? The very famous Simon Sinek TED talk around the golden circle of communication that touches on this. But it's about, are you connected to the why, and can you see the meaning in your work and the contribution that you're making? And it's the idea that people want to do something that matters, and they want to be part of a team mostly. And so if you want to maximize motivation for yourself and for others, I'd really start there. Why do you get out of bed in the morning every day? For me, I want to help people improve performance and solve problems. So even when I'm knackered, if I need to get a bit of motivation to get out of bed and to get into a task, I find that in it, and I think that really helps me. And we can help other people do that by talking more frequently about the purpose of their work. That might be very clear to you, but with people being a bit further away from it, maybe you're sharing less stories of successes, of the impact that you're having on people. Maybe people can't see it as well. So actually checking in on that and sharing some stories about how you've helped achieve the purpose of your team or your organization, or how you've helped clients or customers, could really, really give people a boost. And I think that would be awesome. Okay, next one is mastery. So that's when we feel like we're improving our skills or ourselves as we progress towards a lofty goal. And that's pretty much an innate human desire. Is to improve things, and it's here or there. It's more or less at different times of our life. But I think we all want to get better. We all want to improve, and you particularly see this one suffering in people who have been in their career for a while, where they don't feel like they're learning. So if you feel like you're challenged and you're developing and you're learning, it's fantastic. That will help drive your intrinsic motivation, especially if you're learning something that's interesting, because that's what you really want to be doing. But people who are kind of later in their career, if they don't feel like they're being challenged in that way, their motivation can actually go down. So what my suggestion is, why not try and incorporate for 15 minutes, maybe half an hour, just a period where you're focused on mastery? Can you read something? Can you look at YouTube clips? Can you learn and do something a bit different? Because I think that time invested would have such a massive impact on productivity for the rest of the day, and it could help create some really great ideas around creative and innovative solutions or services. So that would be something that I'd be trying to build into your day every day. So for example, I start my day, get a cup of coffee, and then I read something that's going to interest me, and I'm going to learn something, because that for me I know is a massive motivator. And then the final one, this is autonomy. So it's about having choice about how we do things. And so it's right and proper that organizations kind of set the vision and they set the goals, but individuals should be given choice about how they get to the destination. And by doing that, and they can do that at any level, providing somebody with the right level of support and the right guidance and framework, you can give them that autonomy in choosing how they do something. And again, that shows people that they're recognized, that you value their perspective. And it really helps them feel competent, and competence is massive because it links back to our previous point about confidence. So you can support somebody giving them a task, or you can lead a task, and that can really maximize your feeling of competence. And as a result, you're much more likely to feel motivated. So time's kind of marching on, so I'm just going to say thank you very much for listening to me there, and open up the floor to any questions. But before we do that, I would like to say I know that was quite quick, and there was certainly topics that we didn't get to discuss there. So if you do want to talk about anything in relation to this, then please do drop me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can continue the conversation there.
Brilliant, thank you, Andrew. Well, as you say, that was a huge amount of content there, both from yourself and from Georgia. So that was fantastic. I really appreciate you taking us through a sort of edited highlight, shall we say. But as we said, there is an opportunity for people to play that back so that they can refresh their minds of exactly what you were saying. But we've got a few questions in. So I was going to, Jordan, I think I might bring you in here. I know you've got a couple of questions. Did you want to kick off with asking a couple of questions of Andrew? And then just to remind everybody, we've got a few in, but we have got time for more, I think, than we've got. So please do send your questions in. But Jordan, perhaps you want to come in here and just ask your questions.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. It's a question for you, Andrew. You mentioned the dopamine rush that we get when we complete a task on a list of tasks. I'm vaguely aware of that, but I just was hoping you could touch on that a little bit more, because since working from home, I've certainly found myself consistently creating list of tasks for my days and found it really useful. So can you maybe touch on a little bit of the psychology behind that, or why that might work so good for me and potentially others?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fantastic question. Thanks, Jordan. So there's something out there called the DISC profile, which is a way of sort of classifying behaviors, and it's a sort of simple 2x2 matrix. One of the two dimensions on that is how much people are motivated by completing tasks. So you'll know from interacting with folks, either you really like tasks and lists and getting stuff done, versus the other side of that, which is more focused on people. Now, so you can kind of get a dopamine hit from either of those two things. You could get it from, I'm going to set myself a goal and I'm going to do that and I'm going to tick it off and I'm going to feel good. It's a reminder that you've done well. And by ticking it off, it basically activates a reward center in our brain. And that's why we feel motivated by it. The other side of that is people might feel motivated by having a conversation with somebody and discussing ideas, and essentially just having a conversation. And you'll notice this in the way that people communicate, particularly through instant message. Like if you get instant messages from people that get straight to the point, none of this hi, how are you stuff, they just get straight to the point and they tell you the task that they want. They're motivated by tasks and getting things done. Where some other people might start with, hey, how are you? How's the family? What are you up to? And then they get to what they're looking for. So it's really a reflection of how people behave differently, what their personal preference is, but also just recognizing in yourself what is it that makes you happy. Is it powering through some tasks, ticking off a few things from the to-do list, and then rewarding yourself with a break, or is it that actually you need interaction with other people? And I like to think about what recharges you, and the other element of the presentation we didn't get to was pillars of well-being, which covers that as well, which is we need to be doing things that recharge us, because if your only respite from work to home life is walking a few feet from your desk into the next part of your house, there's not much of a barrier. So you need to be doing activities that are really recharging you. So long response, so I'll try and summarize. One is work out what motivates what you like doing as part of work, and then do more of that, be that completing tasks or making sure you're getting the opportunity to work with people. And then the other is what recharges you outside of work time, and then allowing you to be the best version of yourself.
Brilliant. Okay, no, that's great. Thank you, Andrew. And as you say, very thorough, and on a personal level explains why my partner wants to keep coming in and talking to me about things, and I'm getting quite frustrated about it now. We're both working from home, so very practical, very practical application to me. Right, so we've got a few questions in. I think there's one for you, Georgia, just on your research around values. So how do you know, what's come out of your research, and what are your thoughts on matching personal motivations to companies' social value measurements and their value framework? I know you've been looking at that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, being able to map those across is very helpful to sort of develop emerging professionals moving through. And I think this touches on sort of being open and transparent with individuals about, you know, and from a company perspective in terms of what is it that the company expects from you, not necessarily set out in your general business principles or anything like that, but where is the individual firm looking to go? What are they looking to drive through? What things are driving that company or that firm to develop towards? And then individuals, emerging professionals, anybody can then sort of understand how what they're looking for can map into what that business is. As I say, you know, we only touched on a few areas as a part of that research, and it was very initial to sort of give us that launch platform from which to go from to start developing this. And I think what we've seen coming through, and I'm sure it's not a surprise to anyone on the call, is, you know, the likes of having meaningful and purposeful work where individuals feel like they're really making a positive impact. You know, it's being able to see, particularly I think this rings true for a lot of our sort of SME member firms, in that they tend to kind of start a project and then they might hand it over, and it's understanding and being able to provide that individual with the knowledge that you'll start it, but you might not necessarily see it through to completion, which could be where, you know, some of sort of the larger firms have that development to bring that value in to link it through. If the individual wants to have that continuous follow through with a project, is aligning those values to it from that side. And I think from personal experience and from conversations with the emerging professionals within the network, it's very much about feeling like there's a level of transparency with the advent, we touched on, of the internet, not just from being able to kind of to develop your own develop your own thoughts around kind of how everything's looking, but we now have so much information at the touch of our fingertips. We are so well connected to everything that it's quite easy to be able to find out, you know, information about companies. They might say they do this, actually they do X, and it's having those firms be very transparent with what it is that they're delivering on, and understanding that, you know, things like Glassdoor exist so that people can provide those open and honest reviews. So you want to make sure that you are really sort of living your purpose, so to speak, and being very, you know, upfront with what that is, so that your emerging professionals and others can get involved with that. Okay, brilliant. No, that's, yeah, as you say, a very, very interesting topic there. I'm sure we'll get much more out of it when you launch the full research, but just a little bit of a snippet there was very helpful. So I'm going to bounce between the two of you. So Andrew, back to you for a question. And this one's come in, so it's a little bit around peer pressure. So social media, it's, you know, showing a lot of stories about staying motivated, learning new skills, you know, fitness goals, crafting. Can this be counterproductive for people who are not doing this? So due to, for example, having to juggle work and childcare, you know, what would you say to those people who perhaps might be wanting to do this and are perhaps left feeling like they were underachieving because they're not furloughed, they've got personal circumstances that mean that they're a little bit more time constrained? Could you offer some advice to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some great stuff happening on social media. Particularly, I was really inspired by what was happening at the beginning of our kind of social distancing and people sharing things. And actually, it was what motivated me to put this presentation together. I saw other people doing something and I wanted to contribute as well. That being said, I'm really not a massive fan of social media for exactly this reason. it is essentially a highlight of somebody else's life, many other people's lives, and you're just seeing it constantly. So it's so easy to compare yourself to other people. And in fact, my PhD was about what happens to your perceptions of performance and emotions when you define your success versus your own previous performance, as opposed to the other people that you play against. And so what that's really instructed to me is what's really important, both for your well-being in terms of emotions, your confidence, but also your performance, is to focus on you. You know, what is achievable for you, because as you rightly point out, everybody has different situations. You might be able to go run a 10K. 10K would damn near kill me. So a 1K is success for me. That doesn't matter. And it's exactly the same with our other commitments. If you can spend 5 minutes doing something, and that's 5 minutes more than you spent last week, then that's absolutely ideal. So my advice in this situation would be, think of the things that make you happy, that you want to do, and try and just carve out a tiny little bit of time for that. Less than you think you should and less than you think you can, because life gets in the way. So just carve out a tiny little bit of time, and if you get that done even once a week, that's awesome. And then next week, if you can do that again, then you're fantastic. And if you just keep doing that and maybe build it up here and there when you can, in a few months' time, you're going to be so much further forward than you are now, and you'll be able to look back and think, I'm doing really well. But I would always keep it focused on what is best for you, what makes you happy, and what can you fit in with the rest of your life, and not think about who's doing what outside of that.
No, very wise advice. You said that could be something really small. I mean, you know, in a personal circumstance, it could be something like just reading, one article actually around something technical, something interesting, something that you wouldn't normally engage with, which is a matter of minutes, isn't it? So I think you don't have to put a magnitude on it. You don't have to be signing up to do a PhD or anything.
Absolutely, it could be going out for a walk for 5 minutes after you finish your lunch. It's something very small.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I sort of feel like we just need to kind of book Andrew every morning to give everybody a sort of 15-minute pep talk. We'd all be much more motivated. Right, so a question now for both of you, because I'd like different perspectives on this. So I'll come to you first with Andrew, but Georgia, I'd like your perspective as someone who I know is working on this. But it's what would you recommend for building a high-performing team remotely when you're starting work perhaps with a new project or with a new client? So it's very different set of circumstances where we might be kicking off projects. So first to Andrew, and then I'll come to you, Georgia, because I know this is something that you're doing in practice. So Andrew, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a really big part of my work. That's part of what I do, building high performance teams. And so I've done a fair amount of research in that, and I've got a model that I'll share with folks after the webinar. But briefly, my top 3 things are purpose, leadership, and then probably clarity. It becomes a bit, I'm saying probably because that third one will depend very much on who you're working with, what the team is, and what the situation is. But as I mentioned earlier, I think purpose and leadership are really important, and I think some degree of clarity can really help people thrive.
Mm-hmm. And what would be different in that if you were trying to do it remotely than if you were doing it, trying to apply that framework in a sort of circumstance where you could make face-to-face contact, develop the relationships in that way?
Yeah, so I think the way you would go about that would be different. I think you have to be more explicit about checking in on the purpose point and making people feel connected to that. I'd probably be trying to organise more conversations between people to discuss things. I think the temptation is to get our heads down and create content and do stuff, but actually I'd be encouraging people to step back and just involve people more, and more conversations about things, be that one-to-one or in a group, because it's easier when you work next to somebody to just have a quick 5 minutes. Oh, have you thought about X, Y, and Z, and to incorporate ideas? But I think we have to be a bit more intentional about that now and a bit smarter about how we do that.
Mm-hmm. No, brilliant. Yeah, really helpful. Thank you. So Georgia, what are your thoughts on that? I know that's something you've been actively doing in your day job. So how have you been creating that on a personal level?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo everything that Andrew has said in terms of making your purpose really clear and providing a lot more clarity to the individuals that you're working with in that team. And having those, upfront conversations, be they as part of a group or on an individual one-to-one basis if you feel like you need to pick up more areas. But I think also encouraging individuals as a part of that team to be a lot more vocal back with you if you're part of that leadership aspect, and encourage them, very much re-emphasize the fact that there is no such thing as a stupid question. Anything can be asked. They can come to you when they need you on whatever platform, whether that's as a phone call because they're fed up with sending emails, as an IM because it's quite quick. If your team and your business is that way set up, perhaps even something as colloquial as WhatsApp if they feel more comfortable using that. But understanding sort of how individuals operate and work, and sort of what I think, linking back into sort of Andrew's previous slides in terms of what motivates them to do well, and perhaps sort of where do they feel that they could need more confidence building, or could require sort of more of a focus in certain areas, and proactively working with them where possible to help them to build and to develop that aspect, and encourage them to sort of take using, again, Andrew's previous, as using mastery as sort of a way of helping them to try and develop a different skill set, whether it be watching a short TED talk or an article that perhaps you yourself found helpful, sharing that with your team. Also taking into account those that you don't necessarily want to be over communicated with, so understanding what that sweet spot would be for talking to people. They might not necessarily want to connect with you twice a day, they might rather do it once a day or once a week, but being very upfront and very clear with how that's going to work, and reviewing that on a weekly basis to make sure that it's working for the team, but also for yourself as well as the manager or the leader of that team, that you're not overwhelming yourself trying to sort of oversee other people whilst still trying to deliver client work at the same time.
Yeah, brilliant. I really like that kind of over communicated. I think that is something that we are potentially at risk of. Or maybe just through the wrong forums is a better way to put it. Okay, so I've got a question for you, Andrew. You referred a lot to connecting to the why, an individual's why in terms of their motivation. So can you illustrate the questions you might ask someone to explore and sort of draw out their why, so that we can start to apply some of the thinking that you've talked us through today? So how would you go about drawing that out from somebody?
Yeah, so I would probably begin talking a lot about your clients or customers and trying to instill that mindset as well, and asking questions like, well, what is the value for the client that you're creating, for example. I'd also be talking to people about what do they really enjoy as part of their work, because the reason the why is so powerful is because it connects with the limbic brain, which is our emotional center of our brain. So actually we can ask a lot of questions about enjoyment, pride. We could ask the flip side, anger and dejection. So how do people feel? What makes them feel that way? And I think that'd be a great way to get to the purpose, because then you're going to have, it would be quite emotive, but that's what we're looking for, something that really draws people in. So I'd start with those two approaches. So there's something called an empathy map, which is a really useful tool that allows you to work with a team I mostly use it for mapping out the future, but it asks about how you're going to think and feel in the future. So when you're setting purpose, that can be really helpful, because your purpose should be quite long term. So, how do you want to think and feel in the future? And people can talk to you about the emotions and the feeling side. And then also the thinking side could be you tying into, well, what's the value that you're creating, not just in terms of the deliverables. You need to kind of go a level beyond that to, what are we doing? Where's the value we're giving to the world? What are we contributing to society? And the other thing on that is just to look at some really good examples. Google's purpose is something like, organising the world's data so it's available to all, or some wording to that effect. So looking at some purposes from organisations that have them and that you think are really good can be a really great starting point to give people the right mindset.
Really helpful again, thank you, and quite practical. So I like this. We're getting a good mix between concepts and ideas and things to engage with, and actually getting down to the sort of nuts and bolts of how you apply it. So really, really helpful answer. Thank you. So Jordan, I think I might bring you in here for the last question. I think you've got a question around maximising motivation when working from home, something along those lines. Did you want to ask that one now?
Yeah, sure. Andrew, you touched on, I found it really helpful that you mentioned, you know, you wake up, you have a coffee and you do some reading and learn something new, because I do something similar with coffee as well, because I love it. And I find that really useful as well. I just was wondering, is there anything else in particular that you found, you know, little kind of backdoors to productivity similar to these that you found have worked for you or your colleagues very well?
Yeah, awesome question. So I started doing this. Hardest thing I ever did in my life was writing up a PhD, because it's just such a grind. And I used to listen to sort of Mumford and Sons. There was a particular song that I used to listen to get myself into the right mindset. And I think that came from sport. You know, you see a lot of that, people with headphones in and trying to get in the right mindset. So you could do that. You could do you could put on some music. I wouldn't suggest watching videos, because you just get lost in a YouTube or Facebook video hole and an hour will go past and you won't have done anything. But you can use, you know, a song to kind of get you in the right mindset for work. You can use basically simple behavioral triggers that get you into the right mindset for the next thing that you're going to do. So it might be like getting your coffee, getting some water, and then sitting down at your desk and then putting a song on. It might be sketching. It doesn't matter what your kind of behavioral pattern is, but just something really short that takes a couple of minutes, that you know that once that finishes, you start working. But I'd also say, find the points in your day where you feel like you're flagging and take a short break. Like we can be at risk of being too close to our desks too much. So, you know, especially now that the weather's getting better, get outside, breathe some fresh air, refresh yourself, because you will be more productive in the next hour if you take a bit of a break. And then end of the day, come up with, again, a really short routine. In sport, they call them pre-performance routines, but they're just essentially behavioural routines. But do one at the end of your day. So some people I've been speaking to have said, right, I'm going to clear all the cups off my desk and I'm going to physically close my laptop, because I want to mark that as the end of the day, and then I'm going to go and be a family member. I'm not going to focus on work in the evenings. Even if you work more flexibly, you can do that. So when you walk away from your desk, clear it down as much as you can, or close your laptop, or just do some very simple behavior that marks that for the moment you are done. So basically what you could end up with is a really short, really short behavior, something that gets you into work. So that could be making a cup of coffee and sitting at your desk if that's all you need. Might be some music or something else to motivate you if you need something extra. And then at the end of the day, your end of your work period, do something, another little behavioural thing that marks the end, and then you can move on to another activity after that. Because remember that we used to have a commute mostly to decompress and to sort of, you know, scroll through social media, look out the window of a bus, whatever that might be. Your commute's probably 5 seconds as you move from one room to the other. So a little behaviour that lets you stop work and then maybe go and do something else will really help you transition and have a more relaxing evening and think about work less.
Thank you, Andrew.
Brilliant. No, that's yeah, brilliant. And I think that's a good point to end on. So we've covered most questions. We did have one that was a suggestion, which I thought was lovely, is that somebody is saying on their team, they, instead of starting a meeting with a safety moment, they start with a smile moment. So I won't discuss that, but I'll just leave that there because I think that's a lovely point to end on. So maybe we need more smile moments at the moment. So just to close out the call, I just want to say thank you very, very much to my speakers, so Andrew, Georgia and Jordan. Fantastic, really fascinating. I'm certainly going to watch this back because I thought there was so much in that and the questions. Just want to close out now by taking a look at what we've got coming up. And I've been prompted by James with a rather large photo of my head appearing on screen, which we didn't approve that one, James, so thank you. But yeah, so just to say that we've got this Ask ACE, and this could be anything, any topic, you know, related to the current circumstance or anything to do with the industry that you might want clarification, just our thoughts on. We're going to be picking this up, so we'll give you an opportunity to engage with us and our sort of panel of experts. So please do You know, have a look on Twitter, and if you want to ask something, I'm going to be recording answers to these, so anything you like. Perhaps nothing to do with how large my head is on this picture, but anything that we can practically help you with, please do sort of send them in to Ask ACE. And finally, just to put out a nod to our future webinars. So today we've had Maximising Motivation. We've got perhaps a not so exciting subject, but very important, around bank loans and finance to support businesses at the moment. Next week, we've got something on cash flow and tax credits. And then lastly, looking at the recovery programme and how we come out of this at a business and actually at a personal level as well, because there'll be some wellbeing and things linked into that particular webinar. So without further ado, I just want to say thank you again to my brilliant panelists. If you enjoyed it, you can watch it back, so please go and do that. You can connect with us, as we said, on LinkedIn and things, but just once again, thank you ever so much to all of you for taking part and to my panelists, and I hope you have a very enjoyable rest of your day. Thanks very much, everybody. Take care.
Thank